Now, uh, welcome to all of you. Thank you for this opportunity from the part of WWF. Uh, See, basically, before I start off with my slides, I would like to show you this guy. Uh, this is a turtle, and this is a turtle which we are going to speak about today. You can see the head over there. It is a bit disturbed because of the light over here, light coming from different angles. But it is becoming much and more comfortable in my hand. You can see the limbs and you can also see the long nails. This is a male turtle. You can see the tail, which is quite long. You can see on the other side the big tail which it has. And you can see one of the interesting questions in discussing with turtles is that as you can see, we classify the animals into two groups, the invertebrates and the vertebrates. Now, in the case of invertebrates, what they have is a exoskeleton. Like for the beetles, bugs, and all, they have a skeleton outside their body. They have a calcareous covering which protects the animal from external things, and within that, the body parts are arranged. Now here, when we move over to vertebrates, we have a central skeleton around which the organs are arranged. But when you compare turtles with all the both the different groups, this is a very interesting position. You can see the skeleton on the top. This is a carapace, and you can see the plastron on the lower surface. So we have a skeleton on both sides, and the body is built inside. It's such a safe architecture, and the animal can breathe through its skin, and also it can breathe from air. So it is amphibious. So it is such an adapted animal. It can live in water. It can live in on the land, and it has got a perfect skeleton outside, which is similar to the skeleton which we have inside. So the body is completely protected, and more importantly, it can take all the body parts into the skeleton. So this makes turtles very interesting animals. And the evolutionary process in which the turtles evolved is also of big concern. Over the slides, when I share the slides, we'll be seeing different types of turtles with different body structures, with different color, with different sizes. Some with have a very soft shell over here, some with a very hard shell like this one. So we'll be moving over to the slides now. So remember this, and I will come back to this particular turtle a bit later. But before that, I will give you a very close-up of this one. See the head, and make sure that you see the red mark on the side of the neck. Can you see that? You can see a red colored part,
Yes, sir.
and
Yes.
that is why this particular animal is called as the red-eared turtle. And we call it also slider turtle because of its behavior. It slides into the water. It doesn't walk down or jump into it. It slides into the water. So that is why this animal is called as a red-eared slider turtle. So I am sending back the turtle to its home, and I am trying to present to you my slides. Slide share.
Tara green
Share screen.
share screen. Yes.
Hope you can see the slide now.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, so this is a Ology talk going to happen right now, and I'm Dr. T.V. Sajeev, speaking to you from the Kerala Forest Research Institute. We are located at Thrissur, at a place called Pichi, where we have a set of scientists, research scholars, technical staff who basically study the forests of Kerala. Now, this is basically the structure, the body structure. uh, of uh, of the turtle, which I have shown you. It has got a basically outer covering. On the dorsal side, we have the carapace, which is the dorsal shell, and on the ventral side, you have the plastron or the ventral shell. On the head, you can have the it doesn't have teeth, but what it has is got a beak, just like birds. It has got a prominent eye, a head, a long neck, and if you go for zoom into the head, you can have the jaws there, the nares, the nostrils, the iris, the pupil, the post-orbital area over here, and a long neck. Now, coming to the body parts, these are the marginal scutes over here on the side. And you have the bridge which connects the carapace with the plastron. And you have on the limbs, you have seen the claws over here. And then at the back, this is the anal opening, which is called as the cloaca. And you have a tail. So this is basically the body structure. Turtles are viviparous, which means that it lays eggs. They are cold-blooded reptiles. And that is why you see many turtles coming out of the water and basking in the sun, because it needs sunlight and temperature to warm up its body. It has got a unique body form shielded by a cartilaginous shell called the carapace, which basically are developed from the ribs. And we will go to that story a bit later. In the hard shells of turtles, the spine and the ribs are fused to bony plates beneath the skin, which interlock to form a hard shell. But softer turtles have bony carapace covered only by skin. So that's the difference. We'll go into the details of that a bit later. Now, before going into specifically to turtles, we need to understand the differences between the three groups of organisms. One is turtles, the other is tortoises, and the third is terrapins. And what's the difference? The first and foremost difference is that turtles and terrapins, they live both in water and also in on the land. So there's an overlapping space. And turtles are exclusively living in water. They have flippers for swimming, have a smooth hydrodynamic shell. And turtles come out of the water only to lay eggs. So the reproductive part of their whole lifespan happens on land. But otherwise, they feed, they mate, and everything else happens in the water. Terrapins also, they are semi-aquatic. They be in water for some time, and they also come out. They have got a webbed feet that makes terrapins different. Just like the ducks, you can see the feet is webbed in the case of terrapins. But the tortoises, they are exclusively living on land. They don't go to water. They have scales and nails for digging, and they have got a rounded shell. So this is the difference basically. And tortoises and terrapins can survive on water, on land. Turtles and terrapins can have the common property of living in both in water and land. And for all the three groups, the common factor is this: they have tough bony shell and have got an internal skeleton. Now, this is a very interesting case. How did these turtles evolve? What is the ancestry of this particular group of organisms? Because there's a very interesting body shape, which is not seen in many other organisms. Now, you can see over here a set of 5 turtles, which are no more found now. Now, 2 of them, the first one here, and this one over here. So these 2 turtles, we know that they existed because of the findings of fossils. We have fossils unearthed, which shows that these 2 species existed at one point of time. All of these are not seen now. They are all extinct. So starting from the Permian period, that's a period at which they started to evolve, we know that the process of evolution of organisms towards mammals had a totally parallel formation, parallel evolution which happened, which brought out the turtles. And that is quite different. Like, for example, these are the reptiles over here. These are reptiles and birds over here. So from the Sauropsia group, they classified into basically three branches. One branch went over here and they evolved into the reptiles, what we call as the reptiles now, what we call as now. Then we have another branch coming over here, which branched over from here and formed the crocodiles and the birds on this ladder. But there was a parallel evolution which is happening, and this is the line in which the turtles evolved. And they were initially the first ones. They didn't have a skeleton on both sides. Then they started to close up. And when it come over here, the recent evolution, they have got a completely covered body. So that is the story of evolution of the turtles. Now, what is interesting is over here is that this is the amniote, the ancestor for a turtle. This is both these are the dorsal views, and these two are the ventral views. You can see the ancestral organism having a basic skeleton over here, and then ribs on both sides. What essentially happened was that these ribs combined together to form the hard exoskeleton of the turtles, both on the dorsal side and also on the ventral side. Coming specifically to turtles, we have to distinguish between two different types of turtles. One set which lives in fresh water, and the other one which lives in salt water. Now, living in the fresh water and living in salt water are totally different games altogether. It needs a large amount of adaptation to live in salt water. So we have the freshwater turtles on one side and the sea turtles on the other side. So there are the two major groups. The sea turtles, the most famous, and you might have heard about a large number of stories about the Olive Ridley sea turtle, or also called as a Pacific Ridley turtle. മലയാളത്തിലെ കടലാമ എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്ന ആമയാണത്, which has got a many nesting locations around Indian subcontinent. And in Kerala also we have specific nesting sites which are of very high conservation importance. And the Olive Ridley is the smallest of the sea turtles. Even though it looks very big, it is one of the tiniest or the smallest sea turtles of the coast of India, and is one of the most often found in the Kerala coast. We had long back near to Kannur, we have Neithal, a group of young men who decided to protect the eggs which are laid by the Olive Ridley. And we have information about the egg laying which happens in the southern districts also. In Alleppey also we have nesting sites. Now, that's a very interesting story. A story of every turtle which is hatching from a particular location on the planet goes out to the sea, they grow, they mature, they mate, and the females come back to the same location where they were born to lay their eggs. So that's a very, very interesting story, which the scientists are trying to resolve how they locate that particular location. Coming to the morphology, a very closer look at the Olive Ridley sea turtle. As I told you earlier, it is the carapace. It is of either dark or olive, medium olive green in color. That's a top piece. And the head is relatively large and triangular with a width of nearly 13 centimeter. And there will be two pairs of prefrontal scales. Very prominent prefrontal scales are seen on the Olive Ridley turtle. And these are the hatchlings, the young ones of the Olive Ridley. They are uniformly gray back with white areas, with light areas on the plastron on the undersurface. The carapace screws slightly overlapping in juveniles, high vertebral projections in juveniles. So these projections are seen only the young ones. When they grow old, they get much more smoother. And at the plastron, the underside will be a cream or pale yellow in color, almost white in color. And the carapace is nearly circular. If you look from the top, it will look as a round part of a round piece. And it will be basically smooth. While the juveniles, it will be very rough and they smoothen out when they grow older. And this is a map of India with the egg laying, mass egg laying sites. You can see all across the border. you can see nesting sites for the olive ridley. And this is a place where we have the mass nesting, large number of olive ridley turtles coming and laying over there. And the spots ones are the moderate ones. And there are stray cases over here. Once in a while, you can have uh, a nesting scene on the Gujarat border also. And the feeding habit of olive ridley, they are omnivorous. They feed both plants and animals. That include algae, lobster, crabs, tunicates, mollusk. They feed on all of them. And they can dive to the depth of 500 feet to forage benthic invertebrates. They can go to sea bottom, which is 500 feet below. And in the open ocean, they eat just about anything they can find. So that's the feeding habit of olive ridley. And this is a very interesting cycle, which I was telling you earlier. See, we start the journey from here, hatchlings. The hatchlings which are born at one particular point, they go to the open ocean and they feed on the surface for a period of nearly 5 to 20 years. They don't go down below to feed. And they grow bigger. And once they are sexually mature at an age of about 30 to 50 years, they take up the migration to benthic foraging zone. Immature turtles and adult turtles will be part of it. Then what happens is that they mate and they move to the seashores, mating area. They mate at the mating area, which is basically shallow waters, and which is very close to the nesting beach. And once the mating is over, the adult males return to the foraging area, leaving out the females to move over to the adjacent nesting beach. And they reach the nesting beach. They take small pits in the sand and they lay the eggs over there and cover it. Now, after the incubation period, the hatchlings emerge and they go through the same cycle. And after laying the eggs, the adult females also go to the foraging area where they join with the males which are coming from the mating area. So this is the life cycle of a olive ridley turtle. And what does it do in the in nature? What is its ecological role? We know that the sea turtles, even at very small population levels, they are very important in the ocean ecosystem. They maintain healthy seagrass beds, coral reefs. They provide key habitat for other marine life, and in the process, helping to balance marine food webs and facilitating nutrient cycling from water to land. So turtles are supposed to be very key elements in the ecosystem, the ocean ecosystem. They connect across the land and the sea. They also connect between the different trophic levels of animals in the ocean. Now, we are also aware about many different threats to the olive ridley turtles. They happen to be bycatch in fishing gear. Bycatch means that people will be trying to catch fish, but in the same net, olive ridley turtles will be captured, and they also die for nothing. And there could be direct harvest of turtles and eggs. There are people who really wants to catch the turtle itself, and there's a large number of poaching which happens at the nesting sites. Turtle eggs are very costly, and it is also sold in the market. So that is another threat. And loss and degradation of nesting habitat. There's a large number of ways in which the nesting habitat will be gone. For example, you might have the Kerala is now discussing very seriously about the seashore erosion. And we have taken up many different measures to stop the seashore from eroding. And one of them is to make sea walls. You can find sea walls made in many different seashores of Kerala. Now, when you make a wall between the sea and the land, what happens is that the olive ridley turtles will not be able to climb up to the sand to lay their eggs. So the small hatchlings which have emerged from there, they might have gone to the sea. They take large number of years, 30 to 50 years to become sexually mature. They mate and they come to, the females come back to the place where they were born to lay their eggs and found that they cannot climb up. They cannot climb up to the sand dunes. So that's a major threat which we are causing human impact on the population of olive ridley turtle. Predation of eggs and hatchlings are happening. Vessels, which means the boats, ships, and all, they can directly hit on the turtles out in the ocean. And ocean pollution and marine debris. There's a large amount of debris which is washing out to the sea. And you can see over here a turtle which is tangled in a fishing net, in an abandoned fishing net. So plastic is going to be a big issue over there. And more importantly, climate change is also impacting their survival. Many of the nesting sites are becoming inaccessible. The temperature has gone up and they are moving to new locations. And there's a big shift in the way they can survive on the planet. And you should also remember that turtles are one group of organisms which has got a long lifespan. They have got an extremely long lifespan. And in that period, the amount of change which we are making on the seashore are going to definitely impact the survival. See over here, these are plastics. They disintegrate and become small pieces. And while the turtle feeds on algae, the plastic also go in. You can see over here a iron piece which has stuck into the a carapace, and it has started making it uneasy to move. Tangled in a fishing net. Here you can see a bait, a fishing bait, which has been the bait was tried to be eaten by the turtle, and it got into it. Now these are the big threats which the olive ridley turtles are facing. So we have mounted a large number of conservation programs for that. They are legally protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and Appendix 1 of the CITES Convention. And the sale and the trade of turtle and turtle products are completely banned. And the mass nesting beach at Gahirmada is part of the Pitharkarnika Wildlife Sanctuary, and the waters around that place is declared as a marine wildlife sanctuary in 1997. It was done basically to protect the nesting and breeding habitat of olive ridley. The coastal waters of Devi and Rushikulia Rukari are declared as a no fishing zone during the sea turtle breeding season under the Odisha Marine Fisheries Regulation Act. So there are many ways in which we are trying to make sure that their habitats are not damaged, and at least during the period of their nesting or egg laying, which happens during the period of January to May every year. And we have also redesigned fishing nests using TDs. TDs are basically turtle excluder device, which is a special design net with an exit cover that retains the catch while allowing the turtles to escape. So special designed nets which capture only the fish, and there is escape mechanism for the turtles. And marine turtle conservation in Kerala is a program of the Wildlife Fund during the breeding season of turtles. Other examples, there are, I was speaking about the olive ridley until now. Now we are on screen, you can see two other turtles, the leatherback. In Malayalam, we call it as the koalama, and also the green sea turtle, pacha kadalama. They are also marine turtles. The next one is much more rare one, hawksbill sea turtle, Chundan kadalama, which is a critically endangered species. You can see it on the screen right now. And we come over out from the sea, we move over to the freshwater turtles and terrapins. There are two types of freshwater turtles, one set with hard shell like this, and another with soft shell. The hard-shell turtle, they are smaller hard-shelled amphibious forms inhabiting various freshwater bodies. They are adapted to freshwater than to terrestrial life. And two of them are very common in Kerala, the Indian pond terrapin, seen over here, and the Cochin forest cane turtle seen over here. They are extremely rare at the moment. And this is a distribution of Cochin forest cane turtle. You can see the red spots indicate the places where we have detected the species. They are seen in a variety of habitats like ponds, wells, rivers, canals. Now, this is food habits of that. Vijayacalis sylvatica is the scientific name for the turtle. It is omnivorous, and it has been reported to feed on fruits, leaves, mollusks, beetles, millipedes. And the mating occurs during the commencement of the southwest monsoon between June and September. Right now, today is May 31st, and we are about to start the mating season of the sylvatica species. The eggs are deposited in a small depression on the ground and covered with leaf litter. The extensive algal growth on the carapace suggests that they have a close association to wet areas in the forest floor. So it's basically seen in species in places which are quite humid. And the first two, this particular species, they are exploited in illegal wildlife trade. And we don't have exact estimates about how much is exploited. Forest fires are a big threat, and human consumption is reported to be another threat. And another major threat are several dam projects that would flood significant proportions of this habitat. As you know, there are several dams which are already in place, and many are expected to come up. So when a dam comes, what it essentially does is to flood out all the places where these terrestrial turtles are dwelling. So that is one of the reasons why people object to the making of dams. And these are the conservation measures. Vijayacalis sylvatica is protected under the Schedule 1, as I told earlier. It is now a red listed species. It is endangered, classified as endangered since 2000. We have very little knowledge about the reproductive ecology of the species in natural conditions, and breeding in captivity is also poorly understood. So we need to generate information on that. Indian pond terrapin, Melanocalis trijuga. One interesting, I was just looking up at the literature of that particular species. I had a doubt on that. Now, see, this is supposed to be, the Indian pond terrapin is supposed to be classified as least concern in the IUCN classification. But we personally feel that it is time that it has to be re-looked into, because very few sightings are happening. And there could be the sharp decline in the population of the Indian pond terrapin, which requires a new assessment of the population size, and the threat category has to be re-looked at. This is the distribution of Indian pond terrapin in India. You can see the areas over here, the lower reaches of the Himalayas, and also the southern subcontinent. Mostly in Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Assam, Bihar. This is the states which has got the Indian pond terrapin. It is also an omnivore. Both aquatic macrophytes and invertebrates are consumed. Freshwater prawns, grass, water hyacinth, fruits are also its normal food. It mates during August and October. Ovulation lasts from September to January. 2 to 6 clutches of eggs are laid in a year. This is the information which we know about that particular species. And among the threats, the most important is that they are commercially exploited for food in northeastern India. And subsistence hunting of the species by tribal groups is also known in western ghats of southwestern India, as well as in northeastern India. The juveniles are often picked up from the habitats for local pet trade. And here comes the issue of pet trade. Of the children over here, children are very fond of having pets with them, and one interesting group of pets are the turtles. And that can have two major impacts. One is the pets are basically animals which are jailed, taken out from the natural ecosystem and put it in a enclosed enclosure. And even when we feel that they are happy, they are not. They are out of nature. They are out of their normal habitat. Now, so that is the first issue. The second issue is that the pet trade can bring in species which are not normally found in our land. So which is called as a exotic species. And many of the exotic species can also become invasive species. They can create big problems. I'll come to that in a while. Forest fires is also another threat to the species. And there had been many cases where the species was excessively collected in Kerala and the meat sold in liquor shops. Coming to the soft shell turtles, they are comprises of the modern flattened. Modern means they are recently evolved. The flattened soft shell carnivorous and highly aquatic turtles. Head and neck are capable of complete retraction within the shell. The neck is quite long and jaws are markedly sharp and hidden below the soft lips. Being most aggressive in nature, it is capable of inflicting serious injury to handlers. The limbs are clawed and webbed and modified into swimming paddles. Trionecid turtles are represented in India by 4 species. These are the ones. The Indian flapshell turtle, which is now called in Malayalam as Vellama or Palama because of its color. That's, you can see it over here. And another very interesting species, the Indian narrow-headed soft-shell turtle, Chitra indica. In Malayalam, we call it as Chitrayama. Extremely rare. Yeah, if you find it only in its normal habitats. You can see the gray lines over here, as if somebody has drawn a figure over there. They are found mostly in Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, West Bengal, Kerala. So that's a distribution area for this particular Chitra indica. Another one is the Leith's soft-shell turtle, Leithinte ama ennu vilikkunna species another. It was located in Chaliyar in 1997 by Thomas and by Dr. P.S. Isa in 2004 at Chalakudi. This is a Leith's soft-shell turtle. And now this is the number 10 over here is the Asian giant soft-shell turtle. Bhimanama എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്ന ആമയാണത്. It is huge in size. It can go up to 90 centimeter in length. It has got a depressed shell, a smaller head, a very small head, and snout. Now this turtle was in news very recently. We had a researcher who came from north and explored the native population of this particular turtle, and she could locate one. I'll come to that story in a while. And Asian giant soft-shell turtle, the Candace giant soft-shell turtle, which I have shown earlier, is one of the rarest species of turtles in India and also one of the largest freshwater turtles in the world. It can grow exceptionally large, exceeding 1 meter in length and can weigh more than 100 kilograms. It can so that's the size to which it can grow. And this is a distribution in South and Southeast Asia. The points which are marked as red, very distributed over here, and on the coast of China, Indonesia, Malaysia. So that's a place where you find it. The ecological function of this particular species is that it feeds on fish, shrimps, crabs, mollusks, and in addition to vegetation. So it's an omnivore. One of the reasons to care about freshwater turtles is their ecological role in cleaning rivers. Soft-shell turtles scavenge on dead and decaying matter and contribute to maintaining clean aquatic ecosystems. So in other words, we call it as a ecological indicator. So they take out the unwanted materials out there. The threats faced by this particular large turtle, freshwater turtle, the species started poaching for its meat, and also by habitat destruction and alteration. It requires a specific type of habitat, and many of the reasons are like excessive sand mining, modification of rivers, construction activities, So that can all lead to the decline of the quality of the ecosystem in which it survives. In Cambodia, reports are there which says that the main threats to its species survival is the illegal collection of eggs, live individuals for trading and consumption. Agriculture practices, unscientific dam construction, illegal sand mining reduce the size of the riverbank, the turtle's natural habitat. So whatever you alter out there in the freshwater rivers is going to affect the population of the largest freshwater turtle we have. And these are some of the conservation measures which we have taken. It is also protected under Schedule 1 of the Indian Wildlife Protection Act. It is listed as a priority species for conservation under Edge of Existence program by Zoological Society of London. The nests had to be kept in artificial incubation as there was a risk of getting flooding following the rise in water levels around the riverbanks with the closing of dam shutters. Now, you might have heard of situations where our dams are closed or open in response to the rains which are going to come. So whenever that happens, when excessive flooding happens, its habitat gets flooded. And when there's no water, it also makes it difficult to survive. Now you can see over here, Ayushi, who had come over here in Kerala looking for the giant freshwater turtle. She was in news. Ayushi Jain, she is a research affiliate of the Wildlife Institute of India. She had come to Kerala, especially the district of Kasaragod, where she worked with the local community to look at the Gander's giant softshell turtle. In Malayalam, we call it as either Bhimanama or Palapovan. It is considered to be an endangered and highly elusive species worldwide. Its nests and eggs are discovered for the first time in India near the banks of Payasvini River, Kasaragod. They still survive. So there's a big news which was broken very recently in Kerala. Now, tortoise. There are two rare tortoises seen in Kerala within the family Testudinidae. The first one is the Travancore tortoise, Kartama. That's the one on the left. And on the right, you can see the Indian star tortoise, Nakshatrama. Both are of very high interest for pet owners. The Indian star tortoise, they have each margin has 1 or 3 yellow stripes. See, yellow stripes in each of the stars over here. Beginning at the yellow spot in the lower posterior corner, extending upwards. The plastron and bridge are yellow with black radiations. You can see over here the variegation which is happening on the body surface. The species, they are basically herbivorous, feeds on plants, many different varieties of grasses, herbaceous succulent vegetation, fruits, and fallen flowers. Also known to scavenge on animal matter, including centipedes, insects, slugs, snails, excreta of dogs and birds, and carrion. The species Geochelon elegans is a terrestrial species and inhabits scrub forests, grasslands, and some coastal scrublands of arid and semi-arid regions, but also commonly inhabits human-dominated landscapes, including fields, hedgerows, and plantations. That's the places where you find it. It is distributed in 3 broadly distinct areas in South Asia. The first one is in northwestern India, the states of Gujarat, Rajasthan, adjoining western part of Madhya Pradesh, and adjoining extreme southeastern Pakistan, the Thar Desert. Second is the southern and southeastern areas of India, including Tamil Nadu, Kerala, southeastern Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, southern Chhattisgarh, and eastern Odisha. Then the island of Sri Lanka and its small offshore islands. Sri Lanka is basically part of the Western Ghat geographical zone. And elegans is a single most confiscated species of tortoise of freshwater turtle worldwide, and is thought to be represented around 11% of global seizures. As I told you earlier, it is a much sought out species to be grown as pets. So there have been many interventions at airports from people who have traveled with the tortoise. And excessive collection for trade and export could crash the population and cause local extinctions and threaten the long-term survival of the species. So that's a problem when a species is traded to be used as a pet. Uh, and the illegal collection for utilization by local communities and collection for the international wildlife trade. That's two ways in which it is classified. The second is the habitat loss is rampantly occurring throughout the range of the species. In particular, the stuff forest habitat is being converted to orchards and cash crop agriculture, leading to reduction of available area of the preferred habitat type. And it is also exploited for religious purposes. As you can see in the photographs over here, they are captured, they are transported. See over here, large number of young ones of the tortoises. Here, it is being used as for the religious purpose. You can see markings on the body of it. And it is currently in the Schedule 4 of the Wildlife Protection Act. That's its status, conservation status. Now the Travancore tortoise, you can see a rounded brown carapace with blotches, absolutely a rounded shell, cream-colored head, and a large imbricate scales on the tip of the forelimbs. You can see the scales over here. So that is the distribution factor for the Travancore tortoise. It is a regular species, classified as vulnerable. And it is distributed over here. This is what we know about the species. It is found in the evergreen, semi-evergreen, moist deciduous, and bamboo forests of Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka. They are also found in teak and rubber plantations. Food and ecology, they are primarily herbivorous. These tortoises can consume varied diet. They feed on mushrooms, tender bamboo shoots, fallen fruits of phytocarpus, and many other species, and also frogs, insects, millipedes, and even known to scavenge on carcasses. And the threat to the tortoise is that it is largely hunted and consumed. Many of the tribes of the Western Ghats, such as Kada, Malambandaram, Kani, Malasar, Malay Malasar, they hunt tortoises using dogs or by following the tracks. Sometimes they also reared as pets till they attend a site suitable for consumption. They also use the tortoise for medicine. They use charred shell mixed with oil as a cure for external injuries and skin rashes. Habitat alteration and fragmentation, as I said earlier, due to hydroelectric reservoirs is known from almost all areas where the tortoise occurs, which will severely impact the biodiversity of the region. These projects also bring in settlers who pose a threat to the species, since they might intensify habitat disturbance and hunting. Basically, we are speaking about a very specialized species which requires specialized habitat to survive. When we operate over there with new projects, which is only going to cater human beings, there's not just tortoises or turtles, there are a large number of organisms who are going to be affected because of that. The Travancore turtle has been listed as a vulnerable in the IUCN list. It is also included in the Appendix 2 of CITES. Schedule 4 of the Wildlife Protection Act. It is reported from 12 wildlife sanctuaries, 3 tiger reserves, 1 national park, and 7 reserve forests in Western Ghats. Then there's a captive rearing also happening. The Center for Herpetology, Madras Corporate Bank, has the only captive breeding group of the species in the country. At present, the population consists of 4 males, 12 females, 5 juveniles, and 5 hatchlings, which is normally called as a ex situ conservation. You take out the species, you provide the right habitat for them to breed, and then it is released to the wild. So I covered all the precious turtles which we have. I have spoke about the threats they are facing. I have told you about what are the conservation measures which we have taken to protect them. Now we come to the one uninvited guest, which I showed you earlier in live. It is called as a red-eared slider turtle, Trachymys scripta elegans, Chenjevian armor. Now, this species doesn't belong to our land. It is basically native of Mexico and bordering areas in the US. Now, how did it come over here? It came through the pet trade. It is taken and transported while it is so small, and is taken to newer places. And Kerala also have a large number of red-eared slider turtles in captivity at homes. Red-eared, it is in the list of the 100 of the world's worst invasive species, as classified by the International Union for Conservation. International Union of Conservation of Nature. So we have spoke about 12 species which are very precious. Their populations are going down. They need conservation measures. We need our help to maintain their population, and they need our help not to go extinct from this particular planet. And now we have one species which are proliferating very rapidly, which are grown in several houses in Kerala by kids and adults as pets. Now, this was a news which came a while before. 4,500 red-eared slider turtles seized from 3 passengers at Trichy Airport. So they are moving. They are moving with the aid of humans to newer locations from Mexico. There are many breeding centers across the globe right now. Singapore is a hotbed of breeding of this particular species. And Chennai happens to be the local hub from which the turtles are sold to pet shops all across the country. And you go to any pet shop, you can see the turtles out there. Now, what we can do? The first thing is that we need to put our all efforts for the conservation of the first 12 species. We need to educate people about it, educate kids about it. Kids should speak to their friends and family and relatives about the need for conservation. And whenever huge projects come up, we need to make sure that they are not harming the habitats of the precious turtles which we have over here, 12 of them in Kerala. At the same time, we need to be aware about the biological invasions happening, like the red-eared slider turtle. We at KFRA has got a nodal center for dealing with it. It's called as the called as NCBI, Nodal Center for Biological Invasions. We deal with all invasions of plants, animals, insects, turtles, snails. So all are being studied, and we are trying to make sure that exotic species doesn't proliferate in our country. So there are many things to be done on the side of conservation, on the side of managing biological invasions. So that's all from me at the moment. Thank you all, and hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sajeev. Now it's the time for asking doubts and a very good interaction. So it's open to you.
Sir, ഒരു question ഉണ്ട് chat boxൽ മലയാളത്തിൽ എഴുതിയേക്കുന്നു. കേരളത്തിലെ അക്വേറിയത്തിലെ ആമകളെ കുറിച്ച് പഠനം നടത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ടോ? Sajeev sir?
Yes, I am here.
Sir, ഒരു question.
I'm trying to get back to the screen.
Sir, മേളിൽ നിന്ന് താഴോട്ടാക്കുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് സ്റ്റോപ്പ് സ്ക്രീൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, സ്റ്റോപ്പ് ഷെയർ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്.
Stop share.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, ഒരു question ഉണ്ട്. കേരളത്തിലെ അക്വേറിയത്തിലെ ആമകളെ കുറിച്ച് പഠനം നടത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ടോ?
No is the simple answer, but the process is on. Actually, we are now in the process of telling pet owners not to release their turtles to the wild, and if at all they are about to move it to the wild, we have asked them to give it to us. So we have collected turtles from all across India. We have nearly 19 turtles at the moment in our collection. More are yet to come. Once the lockdown is lifted, we'll be collecting others also. So what we are trying to do is to make sure that the pet owners doesn't um, throw out their turtles to the wild. Secondly, we are also interacting with the pet shops. At the moment, we don't have any legal mechanism to stop it, but then we are working towards that. And at the moment, we are doing the awareness process of informing the people uh, about the problems of biological invasion. And we are gradually moving forward to legal prohibitions on the species.
Okay, so thank you. Pinner question. Apart from humans, which are the other predators for turtle?
Yeah, at the on land, it's basically a very safe species. Rather than the predators, it is normally insulated from predators. But the problem is pathogens. We have a large set of pathogens which can cause problem with the turtles. We also have problems, and they also need medication to come up. So when you speak of turtles, it is not predation which is important, but it is the pathogens and parasites which are affecting it.
Okay. Any other turtles other than olive ridley have nesting sites in Kerala, like leatherback?
No, they don't have. We only have nesting sites for the olive ridley turtles.
In a fiction, Aadu Jeevitham, I've read there is tortoises in the middle of the desert. Is it correct? Vijayalakshmi ma'am.
Yeah, it's possible. They can. Normally, our view of a desert is that it is lifeless, but it is not like that. Desert is, in fact, brimming with life. Life forms which are adapted to live in deserts. I have also shown you one turtle which is which can serve close to the desert. So what Benjamin wrote is right.
Anu, ഒരു question, relevant question ആയിരുന്നു. Is there any chance to be volunteer and to conserve on turtle? How could I get touch with you? That number I will share here. But as a volunteer, what we can do for the conservation of turtles? Sir?
Yeah, basically, there are one thing is that the distribution maps which I have shown you over here, that is all based on very limited studies which are started on turtles. We know very little about their natural distribution. There are new areas which are unexplored from the point of view of turtles. So one is to have good documentation of the areas where we have breeding populations of turtles. So undertaking that with the help of forest department and also local self-governments is one important thing. Like many of the pond terrapins and turtles, they are living in human inhabited areas also. So we have a process of preparing biodiversity registers by the spearheaded by the Kerala State Biodiversity Board, and also implemented locally under the auspices of the biodiversity management committees, which are present in all the local self-governments. So what you need to do is to get in touch with them, be volunteers for that, and scout for the species, and ask them to include the list of species which you identify from each locality. It starts from your home. It's looking at the biodiversity at you inside your home. There's a very interesting biodiversity there. Just outside your home, there's a very interesting biodiversity. And you walk away from your home, you find the biodiversity list becoming bigger and bigger. Make sure that that biodiversity is entered in the biodiversity register prepared for your local self-government. That's a starting point. Another thing is to prevent the biological invasion which is happening. Spread the word that there is out of the 12 precious, there are 12 precious turtles in Kerala which we need to conserve, and there is one turtle which we needs to prevent the spread. So that message is very much needed to be spread among the student community.
അതിന്റെ കൂടെ ഉള്ള ഒരു ചോദ്യം, ഈ റെഡ് ഇയർഡ് സ്ലൈഡർ ടർട്ടിൽ അല്ലാതെ is there any other species that is traded as pet? Pet trade, there any other species?
Yes, there are this. The yellow bellied slider is there. Albino softshell turtle is there. There are many other turtles which are in the pet trade.
Okay. So Farida ma'am has asked, can the State Biodiversity Board not release a communication asking people to not promote red slider turtles as pets? Has any action been taken?
Yeah, actually, we are towards the run-up for that. We are trying to move a bit more harder. We are trying to bring up a legislation which will prevent the people from maintaining the species as pets and the pet shops to trade it as pets. So unless we have a legislation, you cannot go a long way by creating awareness. So we are trying to bring up the legislation as early as possible. We have prepared a video on the species and which is widely seen. It is more than a few lakhs of viewership has happened, and it is based on that people are contacting us to give back their turtles to us. So that part is done. Now we are moving hard towards the legislation on invasive alien species.
So which species mostly coming in contact with human habitation?
It's a pond turtle and also uh, uh, it is one is the Indian pond terrapin, which we have identified from human inhabitations.
Okay, so they're asking if there is a turtle conservation organization around the world.
Yeah, there are many. There are large number of groups working on it. In Kerala, there is one group very active for a long number of years at Kasaragod called Neidal. Neidal was the first group to start turtle conservation work there. Now we have in Tamil Nadu we have uh, the Crocodile Bank. Romulus Whittaker has started turtle conservation efforts over there. So there are several. There are many individuals and organizations working towards turtle conservation.
Okay, sir. Sir, where question is, ഈ കരയാമകൾ അതിന്റെ ആ shell മാറ്റാറുണ്ടോ? Like, do they replace like the like other?
No. They don't mold. In fact, the shells grow along with them. They don't need to mold.
So if something happens to the shell, will they survive or will they just?
Yeah, it depends upon the intensity of the injury. Many survive. It is just like our skin. If we have a wound, it heals, and the same process happens in the case of turtles also. But if the wound is so life damaging, it can create problems.
So the temperature has influence in the female-male ratio of the hatchling. So can we bring some new innovative methods to protect endangered turtles under this aspect?
Yeah, that is why we always speak of having both types of conservation. There are two types of conservation, the in situ and the ex situ. In situ means you conserve them right at their own habitats. A conservation of nesting habitats, conservation of eggs which are already laid by turtles. These are all in situ conservation measures. But then, as you said, when the temperature is increasing, that may not be enough, and there'll be serious impact on the sex ratio. Then we will have to resort to ex situ conservation. Ex situ means that you take out the eggs, you bring it over to the laboratory or incubation facility where you provide the adequate temperature and get a balanced sex ratio in the offsprings and then release it to the wild. So that's the way it's done.
Okay, sir. The olive ridley has a very late breeding age, say 30 to 50 years. Is there any ecological reasons for that?
No, it is quite long from our point of view, but then from the turtles' point of view, they are very young because they have got much higher total lifespan.
കാസർഗോഡിലെ നായത്തിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോ
നെയ്തലായിരിക്കും
പക്ഷെ അത് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ആയിട്ടില്ല.
Sajiji, another one
Yes.
question is there. Sir, ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു അഖിൽനാഥ് പിള്ളയുടെ ചോദ്യമാണ്. സർ, ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു ബുക്കിൽ ഞാൻ വായിച്ചത്, സർ ഇപ്പോൾ എടുത്ത റെഡ് ഇയർ ടർട്ടിൽ ഒരു പ്രഗ്നന്റ് വുമൺ ഉള്ള വീട്ടിൽ ഒരു കുഞ്ഞിനെ Akhilnath, will you please unmute and speak?
No, I got it. Okay. See, what Akhilnath is asking is about the message which has been moving around, that don't rear the turtle in houses where there is pregnant woman or young children. Now the problem is that these turtles are carriers of pathogens which can also infect human beings, like the Shigella bacteria. Now, so the water in which the turtle lives, if that is contaminating the drinking water sources, that is going to be of big concern. We had a few Shigella cases in Kerala very recently, especially for children, kids. And we are yet to establish a relationship between handling of turtles and the occurrence of Shigella. But then there's a big possibility. So that is why there is a warning that young kids and pregnant women don't handle the red-eared turtle.
Okay. So James sir has asked that Thrissoorile ഗ്രൂപ്പിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയാമോ, ലൈക്ക് ടർട്ടിൽ കൺസർവേഷൻ ഗ്രൂപ്പിനെ പറ്റി ഒന്ന് പറയാമോ എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Hello.
Yeah. The question is from James. കാസർഗോഡിലെ നെയ്തലിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോ തൃശ്ശൂരിലെ ടേർട്ടിൽ കൺസർവേഷൻ ഗ്രൂപ്പിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞു, പക്ഷേ തൃശ്ശൂരിലെ ഗ്രൂപ്പിനെ കുറിച്ച് സൂചിപ്പിച്ചു. It is at Chavakad. It's a place called Chavakad, and the name of the group is Green Habitat. It's an NGO called Green Habitat.
Sir, like they conserve, I mean, we know a lot about the marine turtles, but how about the conservation of the ones that are inland? Is there any major thing or group that is looking into its conservation?
Yeah, I was interacting with some of the hardcore turtle conservationists, and the turtle conservation process have moved away from individual species conservation or conservation of individual turtles, but it has graduated towards the conservation of habitats. What we need to do is to protect the large habitats which these species occupy, so that they can survive in the wild. So it is a conservation of habitats which is going to be the key.
Sir, according to you, according to how much work you have done on the subject, how aware do you think the common people are in Kerala about these turtles and the need for conservation? What is your opinion about it?
Now, see, there's a big level of pressure which is happening on the turtles. Like, for example, in the higher ranges, many more areas are becoming inaccessible to them. Many of the intact areas are being fragmented. Roads are coming up. Then construction projects are coming up. So the natural habitat is getting more and more fragmented. And being small organisms, small in the sense that with very limited mobility, what happens is that their population, which is spread out in a larger area, gets fragmented into smaller and smaller populations. And now that by itself can lead to the collapse of the populations when the number becomes very, very low. So that is happening to the forested lands in the midlands and high ranges of Kerala. In the seashore, something totally terrific is happening. The sea level is gradually rising because as an offshoot of many of the construction activities which we have done in the ocean or the sea. The backlash is coming. Big waves are coming in. Most of our sea walls are gone. We are in the process of building up new sea walls, which will essentially prevent the movement of of turtles from sea to land, or from the sea to their nesting lands. So these are going to directly impact the survival of the species.
Some kids have asked how they can study more about turtles and research cheyanam about how to go about it.
Yeah, we need see. I am a person who started studying insects. I'm basically an entomologist. I study butterflies, moths, beetles, dragonflies, and all. I have graduated to study many other species like the snail, the turtle, the invasive plants. So the uh, the 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 area is increasing, and whenever I look up to new research areas, I found that there are very few people who are doing research. Uh, 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 they are not enough. We need more people, more young minds to come into the field of research. So learn well, get out with flying colors, and join a research group where you can explore nature in all its beauty. So that's my advice to the young kids. And this is a very interesting profession. We have every day will be different. No day will repeat in your life. You'll be you're running behind different problems all through your life, and in natural habitats. So from Sangeeta's iPhone, the question, no, Akhilnath, the answer to you is that learn uh, ecology, either in the branch of botany or zoology, and graduate towards ecology, where you try to understand how the nature functions. So that's the way to do it.
Sangeeta has asked a question: are all species of turtles found in India protected under WLPA?
No, except the black turtle. Everyone is. I have spoken about the black turtle. That is outside the conservation net. All others are protected.
Okay, so another question is: are star tortoises, our natural habitat is in Chinnar Sanctuary? Is it
Yes.
in Singapore?
Yes, Chinnar is a natural habitat, and that's the nearest best place where. And Chinnar has got a rehabilitation center. It is not just released to the wild. There's a rehabilitation center there, and they will be taking care of the species.
Any more questions?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
go ahead. Yeah, Rahul, hi. Go ahead.
സാർ എന്റെ വീട് നിലമ്പൂരാണ് സാർ. ഞാൻ സാറിനെ കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട് കുറെ മുമ്പ്, 12 വർഷം മുമ്പ് സബ് സെന്ററിൽ വെച്ചിട്ട്.
ഓക്കെ.
അപ്പൊ സാർ നമ്മൾ നിലമ്പൂരല്ല മലപ്പുറം ലൊക്കേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് വല്ല പ്രൊജക്ട് നടക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ ഇപ്പൊ?
ടേർട്ടിൽസിന്റെ കാര്യത്തിലാണോ ചോദിക്കുന്നത്?
അതെ അതെ അതെ.
ഇല്ല, ഇപ്പോ എന്റെ അറിവിൽ ഇല്ല. സ്പെസിഫിക് ആയിട്ട് അവിടെ ഇപ്പോ ടേർട്ടിൽ പ്രോജക്ട്സ് റൺ ചെയ്യുന്നതായിട്ട് എനിക്ക് അറിയില്ല. ഇല്ല എന്നാണ് എന്റെ ധാരണ. ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അറിയേണ്ടതായിരുന്നു.
ഓക്കെ സാർ.
രാഹുൽ, നിലമ്പൂർ എവിടെയാണ്?
ഞാന് സാറേ നമ്മളെ അകമ്പാടം ചാലിയാർ പഞ്ചായത്ത്.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ.
Okay, I know. I think most of the questions are over, and now we can wind it up.
Yeah, ഒരു ലാസ്റ്റ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഉണ്ട്. അത് പക്ഷേ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് മലയാളമാണ്. അപ്പം സർ, ടോട്ടൽ ഇത്ര എക്സ്പെൻസീവ് ആയിട്ട് മാർക്കറ്റിൽ ഇത്ര ഇഷ്യൂ ഉണ്ടാവുന്ന അപ്പോൾ എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് പോലീസ് കേസ് എടുക്കുന്നത്?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. See, when the turtles, the first turtles came for the pet industry, they were very costly. They're extremely costly.
Akhil, can you wait for a minute?
അത് വെറും ഒരു ടർട്ടിലല്ല, നക്ഷത്ര ആമയെ പറ്റിയാണ് ചോദിച്ചത്.
Okay, Sajid sir, please.
Akhilnath, that's a very interesting question. And Sambandhachala, when the first turtles came for sale, they were very expensive, very costly. Then what happened was that across the globe, many breeding centers came up. Large-scale breeding has started, which brought the cost down. And now the cost of red-eared slider turtle has come down from thousands to a few hundreds. Now the big costly ones are the ones which are not amenable for breeding, which are collected from the forest areas and sold it out. They are very expensive right now. The reason is that we have not yet standardized a breeding mechanism for that. So that's the way the price fluctuates. And the police can take case, and but then this is basically a illicit trade which is happening, just like smuggling gold and other things. This is smuggled in. And whenever there's a tip of police and the customs are at it, but then there are many organisms which are coming, which escape the watchful eyes of the customs and police departments.
Okay, I think all the questions are over. Any more questions left?
ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ കൂടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഗുഡ് ഈവനിങ് ഓൾ. ഗുഡ് ഈവനിങ്. എന്റെ സംശയം, നമ്മുടെ റെഡ് ഹാർട്ട് സ്ലൈഡറിനെ പറ്റി പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു. അപ്പൊ അത് അതിന്റെ ത്രെട്ടിനെ പറ്റി മനസ്സിലായി, ന്യൂസിൽ ഒക്കെ കണ്ടിരുന്നു സാർ. താങ്ക് യു സാർ. അതിന്റെ നമ്മൾ നിയമം മൂലം അത് നിരോധിക്കാണ്ട് എന്തേലും ഇതുണ്ടോ എന്നുള്ളതെന്ന് അറിയാനായിരുന്നു. പിന്നെ ആൾക്കാർക്ക് അതിനെപ്പറ്റി അവെയറും അല്ലെന്നുള്ളതാണ് എന്റെ ഒരു കൺസെപ്റ്റ്.
തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും ശരിയാണ് പറഞ്ഞത്. നമ്മൾ അതിനുള്ള ശ്രമങ്ങൾ നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. നമ്മൾ ഫസ്റ്റ് റൗണ്ടിൽ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്തൊരു കാര്യം എന്താ വെച്ചാൽ, ഇത് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക, വീഡിയോയിലൂടെയും പ്രസ് റിലീസിലൂടെയും ആളുകളെ ഇൻഫോം ചെയ്യുക. ആദ്യം പെറ്റ് ഓണേഴ്സിനെ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ പെറ്റ് ഷോപ്സിലേക്ക് നമ്മുടെ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ നെറ്റ്വർക്ക് എക്സ്പാൻഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. വി ആർ ഇൻ ടച്ച് വിത്ത് മെനി പെറ്റ് ഷോപ്പ് ഓണേഴ്സ് ടു അവോയ്ഡ് ദിസ് ട്രേഡിങ്. അത് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ അത് മതിയാവില്ല, നമുക്ക് രജിസ്ട്രേഷൻ തന്നെ വരേണ്ട ആവശ്യമുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ അതിലേക്ക് ഉള്ള ഡ്രാഫ്റ്റ് ലെജിസ്ലേഷൻ പ്രോസസ്സ് നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞില്ല ഇതിന് യു കൺഫിസ്കേറ്റിംഗ്, ട്രൈങ് ടു കളക്ട് ഓൾ ദീസ് റെഡ് ഇത് ഫ്രം ഡിഫറെന്റ് പ്ലേസസ്. സോ ദെൻ വാട്ട് ഹാപ്പൻസ് ടു ഇറ്റ് ഇൻ ദി എൻഡ്? ഹൗ വുഡ് യു ലൈക്ക് ടേം ആൻഡ് എങ്ങനെ ഹൗ വിൽ യു
answer the bird different. We are not confiscating. Okay. We are collecting. Okay. Because we cannot confiscate it because it is not a legal offense as of now. Okay. And we are not allowed to confiscate. What we are doing is to inform the public about the problem with the species, and they are willfully handing over the turtles to us. And we want to make sure that they don't throw out the turtles to the wild. So to prevent that, we are taking it, and we have now a rescue center at KFRI. It is a newly built space exclusively for the turtles based on their behavior. And we are bringing over here. And the first thing we are doing is to do a pathological survey of all the collected specimens. We want to know what are the pathogens which are there in the turtle. And then there's many large number of fundamental questions which could be answered by these turtles. So there will be excellent study materials on behavior. We are going to study the interactions between the invasive turtle and the indigenous turtles. So a series of study programs are going to be started.
Okay, so basically it's for study purpose and not to like eliminate it.
No, we are not going to kill them.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then now I think if everybody can switch on your videos, we shall have a screenshot.
That's all?
No,
I'm taking
one more page is left.
Okay. Are you taking a picture, Shoma Cheta?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool.
Okay, anyway, the first session, volunteer talk of this academic year was a very wonderful one, because it goes to national level, because the state directors from Hyderabad, Assam, and Madhya Pradesh, and the education officer from Karnataka also are part of this program. So thank you all my dear colleagues and all my dear volunteers to be part of this. And thank you, Sajeev sir, also for the official conclusion. I would like to ask Anusudha to conclude finally.
Everyone, good evening. Thank you so much, Sajeev sir. Very interesting topic, very different. I've actually not had, had any had classes on this. So extremely informative. As always, your presentation was also extremely nice. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. We definitely have learned a lot, and we'll keep in mind that we look out for it in our future. Thank you. Thank you everyone. Have a good night. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
I saw a flash of Ranjan. Hi, Ranjan. Take care.
Good evening. Good evening. Just recovering out of COVID. That's why
Shiva told me. Take care, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care. Good night.